And carried. Next up, minute approval for December 3rd, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review? Go ahead. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And carried. We have few members of the public, so we'll start off with introductions. Michelle, if you want to start.
Michelle Hoover, Legislative Assistant.
Larry Clark, board member.
Alan Gano, board member.
Wade Hunter, board member.
Justin Stevens, good afternoon.
Janet Adam, board member.
Clint Walker, board member.
James Nyberg, board member.
Craig Teal, Director of Planning and Development.
Andrew Brishik, Director of Municipal Services.
Development Officer.
Welcome.
Walker.
And then online, you have two people as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, if the board's in agreement, we can skip to do you mind introducing yourself, those online?
Yeah, Ryan Jensen with Scott Telecom on behalf of Explore.
Hello.
Are you guys able to hear us?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
My name is Sabab Banot, and this is Alexandra Diaz beside me.
Hello.
And we'd just like to thank everyone for allowing us to be part of today's council meeting.
Welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
if the board allows, we can jump to 6.3, development permit 26001, and then we'll start with the online people after that. All right, who's taking this one?
There we go. Okay. So some of you may remember a similar application from earlier in 2025. Development permit number 25087 for a 2019 manufactured home with a deck. So some things have changed with this, and that's why we're here today. So William Story has submitted a discretionary use development permit application for a 2008 manufactured home with a 12 by 16 foot deck. The subject property is located in Erskine at 12 Prospect Road in the Hamlet Residential District. The shingles on this manufactured home are brand new and the siding is in like new condition. And the dealer will be installing the new skirting and attaching a new set of stairs to the manufactured home. The applicant intends on building the deck onto the home sometime in the summer and does not intend to do any other improvements to the outside of the home. The manufactured home meets all the requirements of the land use bylaw. So with that, the administration recommends that the development permit application 26001 be approved with conditions as detailed in the attached draft permit.
All right, do we have any questions for our staff from the board? Is there anything you'd like to speak to before we get rolling?
No, other than the fact that it is pretty much in new condition. It's getting a brand new hot water tank and a few things from the dealer, and we'll be doing some renovations to the inside later on, and we'll just be upkeeping it to new standards.
And I'll make it really pretty and put up lots of flowers.
That actually does carry some weight, so. All right, is there any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And carried. Well, welcome to the new community.
Nice to meet you all.
Little guy's gonna have to build the snowman out front.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the kids will take care of that.
So next up, we will jump back to 6.1, and that is the micro resort wedding venue. Which, Craig, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So this application is located on a relatively new parcel, a little over 3 acres in the Northeast 8. So that's just on the south side of the Boss Hill Road and about 800 meters in from Highway 56 over to the east. The application is to create a series of small cabins on what may prove to be a bit of a challenging property. And you'll see that some of the photos, I'll come back and speak to that point, in combination with a larger central facility that will be used for renting out for wedding venue and those type of gatherings. So the cabins may operate independent for a time being, but then it's possible someone could book the entire resort for a wedding as one of the possible events. In terms of our land use bylaw, the application is within the agricultural district. And based on what's been described as the proposed use, it does meet the 2 definitions. So one is the recreational vehicle park, even though that seems funny because it refers to recreational vehicles in the title, but the definition goes on to speak about using cabins instead of RVs on the individual sites, and that's where this application is more applicable. It also speaks to a community facility. So that's where the wedding venue, which allows for a ceremony operated on a private basis or cultural or religious gathering, can be contemplated in that kind of facility. Both are discretionary in the agricultural district. And then we're down, so that's always one of our first tests are the uses that council has said would be considered within this district. And then we can move on to the land use bylaw considerations. If we can, probably the site photos are a good place to start. Andrew, thank you if you scroll through those. When I say that the site has some challenges, it's basically almost like a peninsula going out from Boss Hill Road into a 3/4 surround of probably years ago would be full of water, but it is a wetland that surrounds it largely and defines a flat tableau space in the middle that you're seeing on, actually on the first photo, I think shows the central plateau area. But then as you get closer to Boss Hill, the terrain becomes somewhat undulating, and that's a second photo down, where you can see that there's that mid-rise that's right in the middle of the photo that backs onto Boss Hill. And that's roughly on the site plan where the large parking lot, 75 stalls, would be proposed to be located. And staff are thinking that there is no grading plan, stormwater management plan. So there's a bit of follow-up that would have to be done to see what will it take to level that area off. Is it better to split the parking lot into smaller areas to do with the leveling and grading? Do you need to look at retaining walls? How does that relate to stormwater management? And those are our primary issues that we flagged in the evaluation of this permit. But we think they are manageable, but we still have proposed conditions to be attached to the development if MPC chooses to approve it that require some follow-up on the grading and stormwater management plan, which may mean shifting a few things around based on the site plan that we see that's attached to the development permit. With the largest challenge being that 75 car parking lot that's available. In terms of yards and requirements, the applicant on the site plan, maybe we'll jump to that. It's attached to the development permit at the end, Andrew. Has proposed a 30-foot buffer all the way around. The access road that you can see coming down from the northwest corner may have to shift a little bit to stay out of that buffer. And that is consistent with the land use bylaw. This is not a body of water that the Crown has claimed ownership of. We have no intention of putting any park space around it. Nonetheless, you should still set back from the edge of the wetland. And the 30 feet does offer them the opportunity to do that. And going back to that photo they were looking at, it kind of puts you under the higher mid spot of the peninsula, which is, as you also see on the site plan, the central location of the wedding venue itself. That's kind of the pea green rectangle in the middle. Individual cabins are kind of the peach orange, arrayed in a row along the southeast corner. And then the big black square that's going to have to wrestle with the grading, that's a proposed parking lot. Staff have also looked at the site. There's no concerns with site visibility on Boss Hill Road in terms of their proposed access. We have also noted the opportunity that if the applicant wishes to take advantage of it, at the very northeast corner of that parking lot directly onto Boss Hill, maybe a good spot to have a secondary access. It too would have the possibility of having really good sight lines, but maybe control it with gate access for heavy service vehicles, such as coming to pump out the septic holding tank, top up the water, or deal with solid waste management. That would also be available for emergency response as well. The fire department has had a chance to review the proposal and doesn't have any concerns with the layout. There's ample opportunity to maneuver through the site with 20-foot wide gravel driveways and the driveway leading up to the individual cabins, in addition to a 20-foot space between all the individual cabins. They do point out to, that this will be a commercial occupancy in terms of building code and fire code, so a fire code permit will be required. And that's something that we're not accredited for safety codes requirements. So we let applicants have to go directly to the province and hire their own inspector to deal with electrical, plumbing, gas, and building code issues. We're only accredited for fire code. And there's a lot of interaction between the building inspector and the fire department on new builds in this particular case. So that's more of a follow-up item as opposed to a strike against the proposed development. The height of the proposed buildings does meet the bylaw, even with the largest of the building, which would be the wedding venue itself, but it falls within the allowable 10-meter height. And for the parking at 75 stalls for 150-person capacity with tandem stalls at each of the cabins for an additional 16 parking stalls, we feel is ample parking. There's not specific guidance in our LUB for this, so we're hoping that people would at least carpool 2 people per car, and that's how we arrived at our calculation of 75 cars for 150 attendees. With that, the recommendation is for approval, subject to a series of conditions, and Andrew, maybe I'll just get you to jump to the appropriate page as soon as I find it. Page 14 of the PDF is where it starts, and we can walk through some of those proposed conditions to be attached to this development permit. So one of them is to specifically give a little bit of flexibility in the site plan as they prepare a grading plan, a stormwater management plan. So if a building has to shift over a little bit, they don't have to come back to the start. The development officer can look at a revised plan and say, get the explanation. And if everything is reasonable, then move on with that. Number 2, though, does require the applicant to look at that grading and stormwater management issue before any construction. So you may have development permit approval if municipal planning commission so decides, but before a large scale digging and building of any of the cabins begins on site, we're expecting to see a grading plan, a stormwater management plan prepared by a professional engineer, and again reviewed by the development officer for acceptability, and then implemented, of course. The washroom building, the applicant did note that that was shown conceptually on the site plan, but when you start looking at the plumbing and septic system layout for to pick up the cabins, it may move over to maybe the northeast corner, maybe a better fit. So we try to accommodate that in a condition. Condition number 4 deals with the length of time the permit would be valid. Ordinarily, it would be you get 1 year to start and then 1 year to finish, so a total of 2 years. You can request 1 extension. Given the need to do some grading work first and site prep, administration is recommending that we just give almost a phased approach to the development and give them at least 2 full construction years without having to then request an extension at a later date. They can still do that if necessary, but we can kind of see it coming, so we thought we would incorporate that into this approval. The access, well, I mentioned we're not accredited for safety codes requirements. We still expect people to get their permits, and before they start using the buildings, there's what's called a final inspection or a permit service report. That kind of documentation we expect to come back in from the various trades so that we have it on file, and we know there's no outstanding issues in that respect before the use commences. And sometimes that process is ongoing while they're actually doing building construction. 6 is the access of the northwest part of the site that has good sight lines, but it may be a little narrow for this use, which means they may need an application from Public Works to build an approach that meets the county standard. Similarly, if they go with the secondary access, that too would need an approach application to build to the county standard. So that's condition number 7. 8, in terms of the impact on Boss Hill Road, we already have other resort-based traffic going down that road. Nonetheless, we think dust control would be a reasonable item to cover for a road use agreement, especially for the existing dwelling that's within the 800-mile stretch from this development back towards Highway 56. So we're suggesting a road use agreement. And a road use agreement, again, is that flexible tool that allows us to adjust things as needed as we learn more about the traffic generation and how the dust cloud or dust impacts are actually being experienced. There's also the opportunity that the applicant may want to do dust control across the area of their parking lot for the sake of their own patrons as well. On the topic of transportation, Alberta Transportation does get input. The site does fall within the development control for the site distance for them. So they have granted a permit for this development to proceed. At this point, they are not looking for intersection improvements at Highway 56 and Boss Hill Road, but they have asked that we provide a 5-year life on this permit, which that means is the applicant would have to come back and reapply in about 4 years or 4.5 years from now. And that'd be the opportunity for both the county and the province to reevaluate how the traffic went and whether or not it caused any issues at the intersection, and they'd be able to make a decision at that time. So that too has been incorporated into our proposed development permit, giving condition number 9 a 5-year life from the day MPC makes a decision. And it is a little bit of a fill in the blank. If MPC goes with a decision, we would give a specific calendar date 5 years out from the date of the decision. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy. Oh, sorry. The applicants are online with us, and they may or may not wish to offer any comments or have questions. But with that, the recommendations for approval.
All right. Janet, you're first up.
So the waste management portion, you already answered. What I'm wondering is the water and other services going to this lot. Is there already something in place, like the water lines, or how are they going to get services there?
So that, depending on what they find out working with the safety codes, there's some water systems that they may be below the threshold that they don't need a commercial approval from Alberta Environment. That kind of remains to be seen. That's why the wording in the condition speaks to safety codes approvals or provincial approvals, whichever one has the correct jurisdiction. So the options for water supply could range from a well on site, topping up a cistern, or it could be trucked in. And again, the applicants may feel that question a little better. And I'm going to anticipate another question, Mr. Chair, if I can. It's kind of similar on the wastewater collection
Go ahead.
side.
Go ahead.
If it's of a certain volume, it requires an Alberta Environment approval. If it's below a certain volume, that's a plumbing inspector approval. And most likely it will be a tank that is hauled out, given the size of the site.
Board Member Clark.
Just a couple comments and then a question too, though, is this was a subdivision that came through twice, I believe, and met the requirements. And at that point, we didn't know if it'd be residential. This seems to be a very fitting plan for that. But when it comes to the Alberta Transportation 5-year limit on the permit, would that just be that the straw that broke the camel's back would be responsible for the entrance onto Highway 56, or like Boss Hill has been there forever, and the traffic to Boss Hill, do you do a combined one, and then the government would be responsible for part of that if that's a provincial campground? Because that shouldn't, I don't believe the straw should be the one that has to pay for everything.
I'll do my best to answer that one. I'm not sure, again, if the applicant wants to offer their thoughts, especially about the straw part. So I'll give you more of the technical answer on how that would play out. So whenever Alberta Transportation asks someone to look at an intersection, they're trying to isolate the development impact traffic. So what is attributable to that development? Part of that process is they first should get a handle on how much traffic is already going through from other uses. And that's what they commonly refer to as background traffic. So the applicant is not held to responsibility of background traffic. But if it does trigger things, the government may or may not decide to split the cost, so to speak, with them. Sometimes the answer can be that without the development, we wouldn't have to be doing the upgrades because the background traffic could keep going for a long period. So it does become almost a point of negotiation between the province and the consultant who did the TIA, and then getting the money. The awkward part for us is Alberta Transportation, when they do some improvements, they don't have a means of going directly to that applicant. They have to come through the municipality. So their expectation would be that we would impose a development agreement on any applicant that's been identified that they need to do an intersection improvement, and then roll forward their expectations to that party in that contract, that development agreement specifically. So we kind of get caught, the municipality is playing intermediary. And that's why they've asked for our approval to be limited to the 5 years that they're trying to look at.
Board Member Nyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to figure out how far up Highway 56 is this from our water line. I'm trying to get a handle on that because we talked about water and wastewater, and I mean, there's a number of options. They could actually possibly work with a mound system in this too if they wanted to. Yeah.
I'm not given the amount of space left and how much would be needed for commercial use.
Okay,
So it's
it's
not your
not
average
fair. No, fair
residential
enough.
use. So
Fair enough. I'm just wondering because that's a potable water is quite a ways away. I'm just, how far is it, Andrew? Roughly? Do you got a?
You're
Just roughly thumbnail it. Can you take shoes off? Count the miles. Well, that's what I was just wondering. We can't be that far, can we?
I think we're a ways away.
I would think we are a little, at least 2 miles away.
You guys would know better than I because I'm not familiar with
That would fall over the White Sands Road, doesn't it?
No, this is northeast.
It's
Yeah.
north of the dump road north of the dump road.
We didn't follow 56, did we?
With the new water line?
So on the posting on realtor.ca, it does say 22 minutes north of the town of Stettler and half a mile away from Highway 56.
Yeah.
We're just trying to find our where our water lines go.
Water line.
I was in the wrong township. I didn't think that looked like the right site, which is why I was so hesitant. So it's probably around at least 6 miles.
Okay. No, I wanted to make sure that we weren't, if we were close enough that we could have a hookup across the road or something. That was all. That was my only concern, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that.
Board Member Gano.
Thank you. A couple questions. I believe there's a property or acreage, what have you, to the east of this. How are those folks, how is noise and dust related to them addressed, if at all?
Mr. Chair, I think the dust issue is ready. It's apparent in the condition dealing with the road use agreement. That's the ability for us to require the applicant to fund dust control on either the entire length of the road or just spot segments to deal with their traffic generation. It probably would still lead to the same discussion that Councillor Clark was leaning towards in terms of cost sharing, given that there's provincial traffic going up and down the road as well. In terms of noise, there is a considerable amount of space distance for the noise to be addressed with that. And then we rely on our standard hours of operation and disturbance under our noise bylaw, which kicks in at 10 p.m. at night, I believe, on all weeknights. So it does make it's not earlier hours on Saturdays and Sundays. It's 10 o'clock across the board.
And that bylaw is known to the applicant, I guess. I'm thinking a wedding venue, 10 o'clock at night seems a bit early to shut down.
I guess it depends whether or not that would lead to a shutdown or turning down the volume, or it's not an issue.
I had one other question, if I could.
Go ahead.
Regarding firefighting water, how is that addressed for a complex like this? Thank you.
Okay. So far, the fire department hasn't flagged a desire to have anything available on site. So the critical ones are the access, the ability to get into the site and get to the structure. So that's where that gravel road that's accessible and usable by the fire truck comes in. And it'll be shuttling in water as needed.
Thank you.
Board Member Walker.
Yes, thank you, John. The recreational vehicle park that is, that's a touchy subject with, any other provincial park for the amount of quads and stuff that come out. Motorbikes. What is on that? Because
Great.
most provincial parks have no quads allowed inside the campground.
Craig, have you talked to the applicant about whether off-road vehicles would be allowed?
I have not, so maybe that again is a good question to put to them and what they can expect of their guests. I'm not sure many people would bring their quad to a wedding, but there's probably other events that maybe they'll. I assume they're still with us.
Yeah, so basically when it comes to any off-road vehicles, we would be just going with whatever allowance the county is giving us. If that's something that the county isn't looking towards, that's something that we're going to be ensuring that isn't available at the property, if that makes sense.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I just thought I'd speak to our general traffic bylaw, which does address off-highway vehicles on our roads, which are permitted, subject to insurance registration and helmets. As well, we apply the same basically within the entirety of the road allowance. And then otherwise, I don't believe we regulate the use of off-highway vehicles in rural areas. So if they had, the permission of a neighbor kind of thing to be going through the field, and just like your own field, I'm not going to come out and say yay or nay. We do have restrictions around multi-lot subdivisions and hamlets, but that's not applicable here.
I suspect we may be worrying a touch too much on this one, given the relatively small size of the lot. Board Member Nyberg?
That's where I was at, Mr. Chair. I think we're at the maybe a golf cart or two, and what people do on their private property if they want to rip around, and I mean that's their gig, really. I mean, I don't think they're coming onto anybody's property and doing much about it on a private property, and I think that may be the differentiation between this being a provincial park versus a private property. So, yeah.
Board Member Clark?
Yeah, it was just for a wedding venue. I could really see golf carts, that would be wheeling people around. And if they stay on their property, there'd be no issue. If they drove on the road, then they'd have to almost comply to what we did with golf carts. So,
Yep.
Or apply to be able to do that.
I don't think they would be eligible without dropping the speed limit and changing our bylaw. And putting
that would be, they would have to come forward with that if they're going to be driving on roads. Yeah,
But on their own private property, it's theirs. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if nobody has any further,
If you'll allow me, I'll just give the applicant a moment to speak,
sure.
if they would like.
Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to ask about the 10 p.m. noise. So we were planning to run the venues around 1. Is it 1 a.m.? 1 a.m. Will that be a problem? Or, I mean, if we're putting the music inside the venue, we're not playing it outside. Is that something that we can work around, or like we have to shut the music off at 10 p.m.?
There's no set rule about when the music has to be turned off. It's all based on public nuisance. But Craig, do you want to add to that?
I would, Mr. Chair, although I think you've largely got the general gist of where it's heading. It's if you get a visit, you'll know you've left it up too loud. Yeah, because it really is on a complaint basis. So I'm not sure the indoor part in this particular case, if it's certainly the picture suggests a glass, non heavily insulated, but maybe the final structure will offer more noise insulation than what that picture suggests. But really, I think it'll be relying on the distance, not orienting speakers directly to the closest house. And there is a little bit of undulating terrain to help break up some of that noise. Beyond that, it'll be a little bit of a live and learn. You need to keep it down below reasonable levels after 10 o'clock.
What is the distance to the nearest residence?
Quarter mile?
400 meters, I would think, is my best guess.
I would also maybe just comment on our noise bylaw. It's only actually construction noise that's regulated to a specific time.
Oh, sorry.
The general operating noise is not restricted. It is entirely based on the subjective evaluation of causing a nuisance, basically, which is a matter for the court to decide once, you know, a peace officer comes out and feels that, you know, they have surpassed a level the court would find unreasonable. It is not the best noise bylaw in the world. Council will probably see that bylaw in the next year, but at this point, there is no hard time cutoff.
I do have another question about our noise bylaw. The nature of this sort of development, it would predominantly see weekend use or long weekend. And we kind of hold Sundays separate as having a slightly different noise allowance. Is that something that we would entertain?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I think we may be, again, we do have something that would capture that out of the development permit. Our development permit could be used to do that, but I think our tool to handle this is by our peace officers on a complaint basis. There's nothing stopping me from having a rocking party at my house, and my neighbor is a lot closer than 400 meters. If they complained, I would have to turn it down. But if not, crank it up and let's party on.
Craig?
Just a little bit of add on to that, Mr. Chair. We'll point out that same 5-year review that AT asked for it for one purpose, but it would also serve another purpose. And that if there has been ongoing issues and it's coming back for renewal, that's our chance to adjust.
No other questions from the board? Anything else from the applicants?
No, that sums up everything perfectly.
Well, then I'll move to accept this permit
With staff recommendation?
with all the staff recommendations.
All right. No other questions? I'll call it. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Next up, we have 8.2, Explorer Communications Tower. And who's taking this one?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that'll be me. So we do have I'm going to call them applicants for lack of a better word, but they're not really applicants in this particular case. Telecommunications towers. Historically, we have processed these using development permits. However, that kind of it gives a misleading in that the telecommunications use is regulated by the federal government I always get their new acronym wrong. It used to be called Industry Canada.
I said.
Yeah, it flows right off the tongue. And they have a process that allows us as the local land use authority to offer input into the application that Scott's Telecom is submitting on behalf of Explore, to Industry Canada. So it's not a development permit per se, and so it doesn't come with the ability to appeal, for example. So the format to communicate whether or not the proposed tower has any issues for us is in the form of a letter that's been drafted and is attached to your materials. We do not have a set expectation for public consultation, but ISEC does, and that is what the applicants have run through, and they've given that to us as well to say, here's what we heard when we communicated with the area landowners about any issues and concerns. So we've had a chance as staff to look at that and also take that into account in providing you a draft letter if MPC agrees to submit that as our input to the ISED process. That said, Mr. Chair, the applicants are here to field any questions about their proposed location, the choices, and how it fits within their technical requirements. And I'm not sure if they wish to say anything up front or if we can go on to fielding any questions. And of course, I'm available to answer questions as well.
All right, we'll start off with board questions. Is there any? Board Member Gano?
I've got a couple questions for the applicant. Has aircraft detection lighting systems been contemplated? I know it has been utilized a little further to the east from here with the windmills.
So, hi, sorry, this is Michelle Klein. I'm a municipal planner for Scott Telecom, and I work on these projects. Sorry, I missed the intros at the very beginning. We have submitted for NAV and TC and Transport Canada, and we have received approval without any lighting or any marking for these towers.
Thank you. So there'll be no light to bother, blinking light, for example, to bother residents. Is that how I understand it?
Yes, correct.
And secondly, I don't know if Andrew can help me here. There was a site that I'm familiar with a couple miles to the east along 56 that is owned by a utility. The tower was taken down 40 or 50 years ago, and that property is not used now. I drive by it often. It's a weed bed. And I just wondered if that site was contemplated while you were reviewing.
I'll have to defer to Ryan Jensen. He's our project manager, and he would have done the reach out. I'm not sure if that is actually in the search ring for the location that Explorer would be looking at. Ryan, would you have any details on that?
Yeah, on your map there, do you have it pinned?
Yeah, so on the map, the purple dot right by the 56 label would be the site that Board Member Gano is referring to, and then the green dot in the southwest side of the map would be your subject site.
Okay. Right, I don't have it right in front of me, but just based on knowing how far our search rings are typically 1.5 to 2 kilometers in circumference. I'm going to speculate that purple dot is outside of where Explorer requested we search for a candidate. So it would not have been contemplated. I'm just trying to pull up my own Google Earth imagery right now.
Based on the map we're seeing, it would be outside of that 2 kilometer circumference by a fair margin.
Yeah.
Board Member Clark.
Okay, I've got a few questions here. We've got a non-resident, by looking at title, we've got a non-resident leasing this land. We already on file, we show that there's concerns from adjacent landowners or close landowners. So I wanted to know what has been addressed on that. Also, is there power nearby, and where are you going to get your power? And if you've got neighborhood complaints, does there have to be a noise study or anything for backup generation, which I know you'll have at your tower site?
So we did get one complaint. It was from Veronica Salmon, I think is how you say her last name. Okay. She has the complaint about aesthetics, about health and safety code 6. It was put in the submission documents that when we requested concurrence, and we answered all her questions. Unfortunately, these towers, we try our best to make them fit into the surrounding area. A lattice style tower is usually the best for this type of build and location. You can see through it. It helps with the visual impact is minimized due to that. It is sort of what we see in our landscape from day to day. But yes, Victoria was not happy about that. She wasn't happy about safety code or about health and safety, but we do follow safety code 6, which is the federal guideline for our output on that tower. We make sure our radio frequency is below. It's so far below the requirements by ISED, but that is monitored. And I think that was her. I'm trying to see if we have any more. It was in the submission. She did have a list of items, but we did respond to Victoria and she did not respond back. Let's see here. What else did she? And then regarding power is part of how we select sites. We have to have the zoning has to be correct when we select a site. We have to have a willing landlord when we select a site, and we have to have access to power. Ryan can explain how close we are to power on that, but that was one of the stipulations to putting in a tower. And that was communicated to Veronica as well, because she was concerned about why we selected this site. So that was communicated to her. But yes, she was concerned about aesthetics, health and safety, and the proposed location.
Yeah, speaking to the location of power, so Fortis has a power pole along Range Road 200, so I believe it's within about 50, it's less than 50 meters of our location.
I've got another question, if I could.
Go ahead.
If there is complaints go forward, who do they forward them to with Explore? Because typically, once that tower is up and running, the only people that anybody sees is the odd person that comes to fix a tower. And as I'd asked also too, with generators running, is anybody? I don't know where's the closest residence to this? Is it Salmons? Because you'll have no generator for backup power too.
It looks like the closest residence is across the pond. They would not be able to hear a generator from that location. It would any equipment we would have is in an accessory shed at the base of the tower. Sound is not something that we have dealt with as an issue once we're up and running. So I don't think she'd be able to hear the sound from that distance. Sorry, what was did I miss another question there?
If there was any complaints about access to the tower or anything else, who do they contact? There's no signs at these towers. And I may be the wrong person to be talking to here, but I have one of these on my property. And it's very difficult if you have issues on who to talk to. So I think whether it's licensed federal or whatever it is if we're coming through our MPC, we need to know if there's complaints, who people put their complaints to.
Yes, for sure. I've never had issues with the tower after the build, but maybe that's because we haven't been called upon. In some locations, we do have to put a sign with a name and phone number. I'm not sure, Ryan, does Explorer have, is there information for people to call at the site location?
There is
on site, probably not. I would agree. Now we can leave the contact information with the county. There is like the landowner on their lease has contact information. So if complaints were to come to the landowner, they would have a number and an email address to reach out to for that kind of complaint, and have so if there is service disruptions, or if the tower were to, it's not a likely thing to happen. Towers don't just fall over, but if it was to fall over, that's who they would reach out to. Their Explore has Explore has numbers on their website, so any reach out there would get directed to the appropriate party as well.
If I may, I think what Board Member Clark is alluding to is many of our other applicants in other industries, whether it be oil and gas or gravel pits or several developments in our county, they're required to put up a sign at the entranceway. So it's the company and some sort of 24-hour after hours contact info on it. Is that something that you would be open to? And
I think,
for the record, I've watched a communications tower from my house fall down twice. I've tried to, not from Explore, it was a different provider. I've tried contacting them both times before it doubled over. Neither time did they respond before it was laying on the ground.
You're not supposed to take it.
So that hasn't happened to me yet, where a tower has fallen down. It hasn't been a situation I've come in contact with. I think we would be open to it. It's just not part of our federal regulations. We follow ISED and their regulations, and that's not one of the items that we have to do as far as our regulation. I think there's more risk with oil and gas because they're flowing oil and gas throughout the day. We've seen issues with leaks, etc. So they would definitely need to be contacted in an emergency. But I think, I'm not sure, Ryan, do you think Explorer would be opposed to that? I've never had this question asked before.
I think it's a fair recommendation, and if you would like to note it as part of your conditions of approval,
Mhm.
I would highlight that to Explore, ensuring that they put in an emergency call.
Board Member Nyberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think that will be one of our recommendations that we have go forward, that there needs to be a 24/7 contact information for emergency purposes.
Yep.
I happen to agree with both the other board members, both our chair and Mr. Clark. Trying to get a hold of these companies sometimes is funny how they're a communication company, but they don't communicate very well. The second one I have, the question is access to this property. I'm just looking at the map. If you can help me out, Andrew. I'm just wondering how you're coming off. Is it our road allowance you're coming off and to get on there? Do we need an approach on this, or what are we doing here?
There is an existing approach into it's the one that the landlord and or tenant uses to access the field at their very northern portion of Range Road 200. It opens up into the field, and that's what we're proposing to utilize for our own access.
So is this an agricultural approach that we have there? Or did we ever have anybody have a look at it? Does it need to be upgraded?
So, Mr. Chair, I think it likely is an agricultural approach, and that's why in the draft letter, it suggests the applicant should put in an approach application to Public Works. That triggers staff to go out and take a look at it, identify any upgrades that are needed to meet the county standard. So that's why we put that in the letter specifically.
Okay, so my apologies. I just didn't catch that when I was reading the package. So, because that approach doesn't look like it's quite cutting the grade for what we're doing. So.
Any other questions from the board?
So, Mr. Chair, if we are going to move this forward, just that one added addition would be on that we have signage for contact information, and that signage needs to be kept current. Unfortunately, what happens with a lot of companies, they may sell their interest in a certain property, and then that sign stays there, and that 1-900 number was 16 owners ago.
Seeing no other questions, I'll open it up to the applicants if there's anything you would like to add.
No, I think we've covered it. Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add that I failed to bring up?
No, I think that's everything from our side.
Board Member Clark?
It just bothers me when we have issues where non-residents sign off on a lease, because Cochrane is about 130 miles away from site. So if there is any issues, the resident or the owner doesn't really have much skin in that game. So
signage helps.
The signage does help, but to their neighbors, etc. So that's part of my concern.
I understand that concern entirely. This is a bit of a catch-22 because there is not a rural Albertan that has not complained about cellular or internet. And you can't have it both ways to a certain degree.
The true point.
So, Mr. Chair, if what I'm going to suggest is maybe the motion, if whoever's putting it on the table, does reference the general gist of what you want to see added to the letter, and then myself and the chair can work on the final language if the group so agrees. What I would probably do is I go to the second line in you want to bring up the letter, Andrew? It's on 126 of the package, buried deep at the back.
Sure.
And what I'd suggest is the second line in our letter would be the one that we would modify, and we'd be adding to the end. We have no concerns, provided the following is undertaken. Signage visible from the road on the west side near the access that is updated for current owner and a contact at all times. I'm going to ask for a little bit of license on the exact wording on that one but if you get the general gist.
Is there someone willing to move that?
I'll give the motion to move it forward
All right.
with the letter change.
Seeing no other questions, I'll call it. All in favor? And opposed? All right, carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, we are back to 6.2, development permit 25101, solar panels. Who's taking this one?
I will. So Horizon Energy submitted a discretionary use development permit application on behalf of Joshua Nichols for a standalone solar panel array. The subject property is located in Carlisle Estates at 8 Kirtley Close in the Country Residence Equestrian District. The 24 standalone solar panels will be roughly 15 by 39 feet with a height of 15 and a half. And then Andrew, could you go down to the photographs, please? Yep, thank you. A staff referral was sent out and concerns were raised about potential glare affecting the airport south of the subdivision. So Horizon Energy addressed those concerns and ensured the solar panels are made to absorb light with minimal reflection. The panels are made with anti-reflective coating and specially treated glass to minimize the light reflection. NAV Canada was also contacted inquiring about the potential glare interference with the airport, and the resources that they sent back does not indicate the proposed development is a big enough scale and close enough to the airport to interfere. So the next two pictures are the site plan and the area of the proposed development. The solar array complies with the required setbacks and the access road is clear in both directions. The development meets all the requirements of the land use bylaw and should not interfere with the neighboring properties. With that said, due to the scale, location, and reflective coating on the solar panels, the administration recommends that the development permit application DP 25101 be approved with conditions as detailed in the attached draft permit.
Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Board Member Gano.
So with the neighbors, is the process there, if they're unhappy here, they would appeal?
Thank you. So yes, for the vast majority of our development permits, when they're coming through, there's very few that we actually do a circulation for comments prior to bringing a decision to Municipal Planning Commission. We rely on instead on the ability for people to get the notice after, either through a letter if they're adjacent, or if they see the posting on our website after it's advertised that the posting is up in the Stettler Independent, so that they can see what the actual decision is and then decide if they are willing to appeal on that basis. I think the exceptions are right now from gravel operations, gravel pits, and data processing centers attached to oil and gas wells and home-based businesses.
Thank you.
Board Member Nyberg.
If there's no other concerns or questions, I would move that forward. I just make a note that I think we already have some solar panels existing in this area. The property to the straight east of them, a little bit nestled into the trees, I think a little bit there, but there is a property already has some solar panels there.
So you're making the motion? Board Member Clerk?
Just a question on the zoning of the area, and when you get into these more heavily populated acreage type living, could everybody put in an application to put solar on, and surround the whole area with solar? Because we went through AUC hearings on 2 other projects with proximity to neighbors, and we've got a lot of very high density of neighbors. So that's my only concern with it is that are we just going to create, like, should this be going out to the neighbors before we approve? As you stated, Craig, we typically don't, but it is one of those things that right now we still haven't had any put into the ground, unless, like The one that Councillor Nyberg's talking about, I don't know if it came across this table before, so. It is going to be a hot topic wherever these panels go in, so I think we need to be ready to address it.
Give it a couple-
Go ahead.
I think it's been a while. The closest to this example that came through was, I want to say the Trestle subdivision, but I think that's a wrong one.
Might have been Jewel.
Jewel subdivision, yes. And it was a far end. It was the same idea that it wasn't, a lot of our other applications, they're attached to the roof of an existing structure. This one is why it's coming to MPC, is that because the minute it's a standalone detached, it becomes a discretionary use. So that's the only one that I think this is literally the second of that type that as a group you would have stood a chance to see. The other thing I would point out is theoretically, could every single site in, there's about 32 lots in Carlisle Estates. Could they all do this? Yeah, they probably could. What I would still expect though is that they're going to be of the same scale because that you see in this application, because they're basing that on their own needs, not large scale power generation. So I don't think we would see the scenario where could we see more on a lot by lot basis? I think the answer is yes. Would it rival the 140 acre single shot that we're seeing in one of our small solar plant projects? No. So I think that's the difference between the two in terms of zoning and approach.
Board Member Gano?
It was described the type of panel that would be used. Is that part of our condition? Because I don't see it there. Is it?
Maybe I'll field that one too.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So we don't pick the panel for them. What we are more interested in terms of making a direct reference, they have to use the technology that they showed us because that's where the reference to the non-reflective coating is. So that's why in this particular case, we chose to tie it to that particular set of equipment.
Board Member Clerk?
What?
I guess how you find that, Andrew's almost at the top. So when you scroll up, the top of our development permit says we're approving it on this basis. And it's the second one on that list. It's the data sheets that describe the nature of the equipment, including the anti-reflective coating.
So they've submitted data sheets?
Yes.
And the data sheets that were submitted are the ones you're referencing here?
Correct.
Thank you.
Board Member Clark?
I'm concerned because every solar installation you see has a glare issue if it's being fought has a glare issue against it. What happens with our airport if it's installed and then there is glare issues reported after? Because planes coming in, there could be.
Yes, there could be. So in terms of the jurisdictional issues that Carter is referencing, our airport is not one of those ones that has what's called a vicinity management plan that gives Transport Canada more control in our ability to control what's happening on the private property around an airport. And when we make these decisions, we have to be very conscious that safety for air operations is a federal jurisdiction. It's not ours. Even though we may look at that and say that's a potential land use conflict, aren't we allowed to handle that? So it's a very kind of fine line that we have to approach on that. If it was a bigger airport like Edmonton International, there's the vicinity plans in place and they would have a more direct role in regulating these things because that's the province coming out and saying, we still regulate airport safety, but for the sake of coordinating our efforts and the local land use planning efforts, we want you to impose restrictions on the following uses, restrictions on the following types of developments, and restrictions on building heights, for example. We already do a little bit of that in our land use bylaw, and so does the town. And when you read the fix area structure plan, the consultant that worked on that called out our legal ability to enforce that. Most people kind of just go along, and we're fortunate that we're not at the ends of the approach areas. So we have to, it's hard, it's a difficult one to manage in that respect, in that we can't stray across the line for airport safety, even though that may be what we articulate as our biggest concern for a land use conflict. So I think, unfortunately, where we're at today is denial would be an easy win at an appeal board, in my perspective. So,
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Just one opposed? Carried. Next up, we have 7.1 subdivision 2025-15. Who's taking this one?
Will both be me, Mr. Chairman. So this is just to the east of town on the north side of Highway 12. And this particular application straddles two quarter sections that are owned by the Erskine Colony. And you can see the two quarter sections are outlined in red on that. And Andrew, I'm going to ask you to jump to the sketch on 53, if you could, please. So the proposal is to take subdivide 4.19 acres. Actually, I'm going to back up and give you a little bit more background first. The bright orange line that you can see running east-west right through the photo, that's a quarter section line between the northeast and the southeast. So south of that line, the proposal is to take a 4.19 acre parcel off that quarter section and add it to another portion of land, 8.39 acres, that is coming out of the north quarter section to combine those and create the 12 plus or minus acre, 12.5 plus or minus acre lot that then would be separate title and transferred. So along the way, that means we're creating a remainder in the quarter section to the north, a remainder in the quarter section to the south. So in addition, there is an existing acreage for the quarter section to the south that you can see in another orange dashed line just south of the pink one. That's the existing acreage. So what that means is that we almost have to process it like two separate applications because we're dealing with two different quarter sections that will bring up two different sets of rules in terms of when we go through the checklist and the planning requirements. It is a form of farmstead removal in that we're separating residence and farm buildings out from the balance of the quarter section. It's also fair to say it's a little bit larger than the 10 acres that we would typically see, but we do make provisions and we do have allowed for that in other cases. Our language in the MDP tends to be we prefer that you stay close to this, but the reality is the layout of the buildings does drive a lot of that. This particular site in the north end, where it's largely green and treed area, there's an open discharge in that area that will not meet the setback requirements. So there's some conditions attached to the approval that the applicant has to either convert that to a holding tank and have it trucked out, or convert it at a later date to an in-ground system that has much dramatically less or lower setback requirements. The applicant has indicated their willingness to follow through on both of those cases. The road widening along 19-2 is taken care of already. And that leads us to who owes municipal reserve dedication and who does not. So the 8 acres that's coming out of the quarter section to the north, that would technically be the first parcel out of that quarter section. And the first parcel out is not subject to municipal reserve dedication. The 4 or so acres that's coming out of the south quarter section, though, is the second parcel. So that is subject to that 10% calculation based on its area. And then we would apply the $28 per acre value that council has adopted by policy for an agricultural type subdivision such as this. So we run the math. It's a little bit less than half an acre at 2,400, and we arrive at the amount that you see in the report. For the Rural Development Fund, the max for a farmstead removal is 10 acres. So at 12.58, there's 2.58 acres that would be subject to the $1,000 an acre charge. And we've indicated that also in the report. So if we can jump just briefly and we'll quickly run over the conditions, which is usually a couple pages up, Andrew. You can see the recommendations for approval starting on page 50. The first one is to have your surveyor do up a plan that reflects what we saw in the other drawing we were just looking at. The second is making sure all the property taxes are up to date. The third deals with that issue of the setback for the open sewage. You need to convert it, do something or the other, and you need to demonstrate that before we will sign off on the plan to go to land titles. The fourth condition is, my mistake, I guess we do have some brushing and issues in Range Road 19-2 that need to be taken care of. Again, that's a simple letter and a request goes into our Public Works Department, and then they work it into their schedule for brushing on the county land only. And finally, municipal reserve dedication, in this case, the math works out to at $1,017.14 as a dedication for the municipal reserve. And then in the notes, we address the administrative application of the rural development fund. So you can see that in note A, that's where we're getting the calculation of $2,850 for the 2.8. Oops, we got a reversal in the numbers there. It should be 2.58 acres that is subject to the $1,000 a charge. So it should be $2,580 is a rural development fund collection. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Okay, Board Member Nyberg.
So I have quite a few questions. Andrew, could you take us to page 46? I'm trying to expand that, but it's not very clear for me when I'm doing it on my iPad. Can you zoom in a little bit? You're not any clearer than I take it.
No.
Do we have a different way we can look at it? Then how about back to
It's huge up on the screen.
then page 53. Can you, like, we've got a pretty, yeah, can you cut that down a little bit for me, a little bit, so I can see? So I'm a little bit confused. So the house to the north here is going to stay with a quarter,
This one here?
but it's already part of a subdivision that we did many years ago.
No, it's not. So yes, the quarter and the big barn that you see that runs east-west. Andrew, you have to move your mouse further up.
Oh, you're,
Oh,
sorry.
yep. You almost, yeah, second, no, up, that's a barn.
Oh, this
That's a house, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the other barn is up and to the left. That is staying on the balance.
That's staying on the balance of the quarter.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so that'll stay as a quarter section, no issues there, okay? The silage pit and the two barns on the west side, bottom corner,
Also
stay
staying on.
with that particular section.
No, remember the quarter section line that separates those two collection of features. So
Okay,
yeah, the north would stay with that remainder, and the two L-shaped barns that you can see in the lower left would go with the south quarter section.
fair enough, okay. So, and the very south property is not as issue at this, right? Or is it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
That property right there.
That is a separate title already taken out. That's correct.
That's already taken out.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and we're creating, it's quite confusing to me. So we're creating the steps that this is going to have to take to create this 12.5 acre parcel.
It'll be first parcel out on the north quarter, second parcel out on the south, and then consolidate them.
Correct. Can you
Yeah.
switch to the 53 drawing? So the way we have to break it down for the processing it, we talk about where the pieces are because they have different rules.
Okay,
But
so
the
the only,
surveyor will just roll in and give us a drawing that shows the pink outline that you can see up on the screen now. And in the other side on the very typical in any plan of survey that goes into land titles, the surveyors have to explain exactly where they got every piece of land that makes up the 12.5 acre 58 acre parcel. So they'll explain kind of the same thing that we've done in this drawing, that 4.19 acres came out of this quarter section. Another 8.39 came out of this quarter section, but then on the graphic, it will show the full boundaries of the 12.5. And that comes back into us for what's called an endorsement and a check to see if it matches our approval.
so the 8.39 acres is the first parcel out of that subdivision on the north quarter.
Correct. And that's why it gets a different policy treatment.
Can we zoom out of that a little bit again, Andrew?
Do you have the other map that we usually have? Don't have as,
Oh, here's, yeah, just the,
Okay.
you only have the one zoomed one. Yeah.
you can see a little bit more clearly what the destination part.
No, and that's fair enough, because I was assuming that property to the north there was still part of the other quarter, but that makes sense to me now. So, okay. All right.
Or, do you have another question?
that's all I was wondering, why we made the calculations of the 4.19 versus the 8.39, because the 4.19 now becomes the second parcel out, and then the 8.39 will be under the 10-acre rule. So I'm clear. Thank you very much. And thank you for indulging the complicated nature of this one.
Board Member Clark?
When you look at the barns on the west side and the silage pits, the owner of the overall land understands access?
That's right.
Because that, it does create a real issue with access if those quarters were to ever split.
This application is submitted with the consent of the property owner. So they've been, actually, that's, they've already had a chance to go back and they've already had a chance to go back and confirm the parcel boundaries between themselves a couple times, the applicant and the property owner. And we took this off the agenda before Christmas, and they've indicated shortly before Christmas that they're ready to come back, and this reflects what they want to see. So I think, yeah, that long driveway around is the only access to come back in.
Board Member Gano?
So do I understand that the north quarter has an owner that is subdividing off this purple north piece? Is that correct?
They own it all.
So the applicant is doing it with the owner's consent.
The applicant is doing, okay. So the owners right now, to board member Hunters, do the current owners own both north and south, all of this property?
They do. So
Okay.
when you go to subdivide land, all the land that's involved in the subdivision, at least one owner that's on title has to authorize it. Actually, that's one of the quirks. That's the only time that shows up in our legislation. A lot of other times in our applications, we do the same thing for development permits, but that's not written right into the legislation. This is. And the subdivision process comes with a lot of checks and balances. So even with that as being our check at the application stage, there's a further check when you try to take a plan into land titles and register it, because land titles will be looking for what's called a consent. And the consent now has to be signed by every owner on title, or your plan doesn't advance. So that's usually, we don't see that in our approval process, but that's part of the overall system that makes it possible for us not to say, go and subdivide my neighbor's land and just take 2 acres.
Board Member Hunter?
Thanks, Chair. Two things. Would they, I guess, wouldn't maybe have anything to do with this? There is that Shirley McCollum is tied right into that farm. Would they be using it, or do we have to give? It goes into
Is that farm tied into Shirley McClellan, or is it tied into the line from Stettler out to Botha that the county owns?
Okay, that could.
Like, it would be tied into the county line, actually. Yeah.
That was put in like 20 years ago.
That line was been like 40 some years.
Okay, so another thing, and I know that acreage on the south, one of the reasons they did move is because the dust issues there. So I don't know if you adding a church there, like, is that going to be an issue?
Heard that last bit correct. Was adding a,
like, we're putting a church there?
no, I don't know where the,
Just
Are you talking because they own it and it's a Hutter brother?
yeah.
No, the Hutterites, so a little bit of history behind this. The Hutterites bought that property. The Hutterites bought that property from Verhoeven multiple years ago. They've kind of ran the 2 acreages, and I think what they're doing is they're selling off one of the acreages here. I don't think they're actually they're not having a church. The individual, it's an individual that is looking, I think, to purchase it. So.
Board Member Clark?
Well, that goes to my question. This newly developed parcel with the north and south quarters, what would it be zoned as?
it remains as ag.
Straight ag?
Agriculture, yeah.
Board Member Hunter?
So their only access into that will be through the Hutterite land? Or that purple line?
Sorry, I guess it depends. So the new parcel, 12.8,
That's, how are they gonna get into this part?
has its own direct driveway. It's so on the screen picture that's up on the screen right now, Andrew's tracing it. It's hidden a little bit by the orange line because it goes right down the quarter section line. So that's their access to serve the 12.58 parcel of land. For the remainder quarter section to the northeast, they would have to go to the north of the photo, and you can see the driveway. It doesn't show the large barn, but it goes up around the barn and comes down the west side of the new parcel to get to the other facilities, and would also carry you on into the southeast. For the acreage that's directly south of the new one, it already has its own direct access right onto 19-2.
That acreage.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That's
everyone,
the one I know that was, they're always complaining about dust.
I can't say that will go away as a result of the subdivision application, but
I know we've been warned repeatedly about putting too much faith in the boundary lines shown in these pictures, but are we reasonably confident that we're not running into some setback issues? It looks like they have a lot of outbuildings that are very close.
so bear in mind 3 feet. So we're going on, they could make it. But if it's an issue of comfort, we could look at adding a condition that says the surveyor has to confirm that there's at least a 3-foot separation of any property line in any of the existing. In addition, I'm going to point out that some of the ones that are really, really close to the line from the 2021 photo are small movable items that may have already or could be relocated. So,
Board Member Gano?
Can you comment on the motivation to do this? That's maybe what's lost on me. I'm not sure if you're able to.
to be able to transfer the portion of the land to another party. In some ways, the internal dealings on who they're selling to, and it's for us, it's about does it meet our requirements and what's the use. It's not the terms and conditions of the sales and transfers.
We need to be very careful about how far down that road we go, because we judge any applications based on whether or not they meet our land use bylaw and our policies. But who is applying or cannot have any bearing. So that's a touchy one. Board Member Clark?
Well, I just was gonna confirm too, it's not as obvious as the other houses, but there is a house in this parcel too. So somebody's trying to create an acreage and that house is right where the.
Correct.
Yeah, and so it's somebody trying to create an acreage with a lot of buildings. So that's what that method is.
Board Member Nyberg?
No, that's, you cleared it up for me. That you did a fine job. I'm impressed.
Don't expect it all the time.
I won't, trust me.
Board Member Hunter?
I'm just concerned to access. I don't know if that's not our problem then. Because like that's my equipment sitting in there, well, some of it still. And I know it's terrible access. You can't use those roads.
So when you say access, are you talking about the smaller buildings just
on the west?
On the west side of the.
They have to go around.
You'd have to loop around.
Where that salvage pit is.
Well, they got a road there. You see, right
Where?
there's the road. It goes into that thing.
Where's the road?
Right hand screen. The little hand is going around the road.
Yeah, that's.
There it is.
I think I know the answer to this, but I do need to clarify. You don't have any financial interests in this land itself?
No.
Okay.
Just my equipment's on it.
All right. Any other discussion?
No. Me.
I will entertain a mover if someone is willing with staff recommendations as is.
Staff recommendations, absolutely. And Yeah, with the making sure of the
survey.
survey spacing.
Board Member Gano?
Was there one typo there in the conditions? Was this?
Yeah.
Okay.
In note A, we have to
Thank you.
switch that.
So I'm sure Board Member Adam will accept that as a friendly amendment with the note A correction.
Oh, I'll consider it. Okay.
All right, any other questions? I'll call it. All in favor? Opposed? No? Just had a couple late joiners. All right, carried. Next up, 7.2, subdivision 2025-18. Go ahead, Craig.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have to catch on my own notes. So this one, at least we're all in the same quarter section on mostly for this one. We have to rotate that. Thank you very much. This application is proposing to create 2 parcels out of the southeast quarter. One of them is the panhandle down to what looks like almost like a lease area in the middle. So that's a new acreage of around 5 acres. And the other parcel to come out of this quarter section is a 15-meter wide strip along the entire north boundary, with the intent that that 15-meter wide strip would not be a standalone parcel on its own. It would be consolidated with the southwest quarter section to give it a legally owned, it's not an easement, it's a panhandle, all the way out to the county road on the east side of the southeast quarter section. Because otherwise the roads on the west are undeveloped. And that's why the surveyor plan that you can see, this is very typical. If approved, this is what would get sent back in for check and on to land titles. And that's why it's changed. The legal descriptions for the 2 quarter sections are now lot 3 and lot 2 to reflect the consolidation of that panhandle with the southwest quarter and the reduced size, plus showed the new acreage in the southeast quarter section. So issues with this particular application, there is the access seems very good. I got to get my bearings on this one. Sorry. There is an existing access for the acreage, and that within that long panhandle in the air photo, we don't have an air photo directly attached to this application, Andrew. Maybe you can jump in GIS. That is an existing driveway and a shelter belt that leads to a former building site that has been, there's no house there right now. Some of the outline of the outbuildings and the house are still evident. And that's what the property owner is trying to do their design around. Access along our range road on the east side is adequate. The panhandle has a good location that's also right now, it looks like it's been almost in place as part of the working area for the CETA line that's going in right across the north boundary of this particular quarter section. And that probably is an overlap with the utility right of way that Echo Electric, I think, has across the quarter section. The existing driveway has good sight lines, and there's a farm approach farther down, and that range road is pretty flat for sight distance in long ways. The conditions that we sorry, I have to go back to MR. Similar to our last application, one parcel is considered the first parcel out, and the landowner has designated the 5 acre as that requirement. As the second, though, the 3 acre parcel is definitely the second parcel out. So staff think that's fair to let the landowner pick between the 2. One of them has to pay the 10% municipal reserve dedication. They've picked the 3 acre parcel, and that translates to around a $700 municipal reserve dedication contribution. Both parcels are below the 5 acre requirement for the Rural Development Fund, so neither would face the $1,000 an acre charge. So the conditions on this one are the creation of the surveying drawing, largely done, it's already up on the screen, checking of the taxes, and payment of a municipal reserve dedication, and then no Rural Development Fund contribution.
Nope. Board Member Nyberg.
So, does the block lot 3, block 1, the west side of that
Sure, mistake, I missed one.
is undeveloped road allowance. I'm just trying to get my bearings as far as how far in the county map we're in.
Yeah,
Thank you. There you go.
800 meters farther north, you're in Lacombe County. So our air photo doesn't
So is it
doesn't show the
okay?
boundary quite
Okay, that's my answer to my question. Does it need to be referenced to them by our?
It's not adjacent. So
Okay,
no.
fair enough. Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I would move this forward.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I will call the question. All in favor? And carried. Next up, we have 8.1 Department Report. And who's taking this one?
I'll take the start of it. So the year-end department report breaks down the total number of development permits over the last few years, further classifying them into either residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional. As you can see in the bar graph, if you scroll down, the last 2 years have been quite similar, besides the almost doubling of commercial developments last year. The average number of days from when the application is deemed complete to the decision date for discretionary uses was 14 days, and permitted uses was 5 days. The next graph shows the estimated cost of development, and it should be noted that not all applications contain cost estimates. So for your reference, of the 103 applications we got last year, 28 of them did not contain any estimates. So therefore, this representation may not reflect the actual value of developments. 2025 shows a decrease in estimated costs of development, and one of the reasons for the decrease could be to the big private utility and data processing center application that we got in 2024, costing $5 million. So that's a big chunk of that. A significant change from 2024 to last year, residential roof mounted and standalone solar panel systems increased from 1 to 17 applications. So that was a huge increase that we saw last year. And that pretty much concludes my portion of the department report.
Board Member Nyberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of things. At which point or when do we know, I know this is a little tough to extrapolate, but I mean, it was an interesting one because I just saw from the provincial government got kind of ripped apart about housing starts. And the interviewer was giving him a hard time about, well, sure, they're started, but they're not finished. You guys are all praising, you had 5,000 new starts in the province in the last quarter or whatever it was. But they're not finished, right? So do we have somewhere where we could say some of these proposals are finished and then find out what the actual value is? I realize they don't put the money on, they don't have to, that's not a requirement. But if you're building a $500,000 house or $200,000 or 1.1 million, when do we, number one, trigger it finished, and when do we get the taxes? Because that's what I'm looking for is development. We could be going backwards in some ways if we're not getting a solid development number. And how hard is that to do? Is it something that we can extrapolate from information we got, or am I asking you to reinvent the wheel? Because the tax department would have to talk to the planning department. I get it.
Go ahead, Craig.
For the record, the planning department and the tax department, no animosity between them. And we talk on a regular
Not
basis.
implied, sorry.
So this is, there's a lot of things that's happening there. I can't speak to the housing starts. I know how I would answer that. But just any project that we've approved, it's still the right of the applicant to walk away. So that's one reason why you have to take these numbers that we're providing with a grain of salt. The other is we're not one of the salaries that calculates our fees based on the value that you tell us for the project. But a lot of trades and people that are know that the higher I tell you, the bigger my permit fee is going to be. So I'm going to tell you a reasonable number, but if it goes up during the build, I'm not going to come back and true it up with you. So there's a little bit almost of some sort of a motivation to go low on it. The other thing is, Carly mentioned one project where it was large. It would have accounted for our $5 million, accounting for our industrial. I think we had that in the industrial category, which was a truthful answer in terms of the generators and CCAN containers and the improvements there are going to be. Unfortunately, the lion's share of that $5 million, up to 95%, and I know this because the tax department told me, would not be taxable by us at all. So it's a bit misleading in that it looks great on that $5 million tax dollars, $10. Because it was basically where you're going to be able to tax a little bit on the electricity generation and maybe the CCAN itself, but not the computers or the value of the computers that are within the cans, which is a lion's share, a good chunk of that $5 million investment. In terms of ever squaring these, given that things are moving in a continuum, so we'd have to track individual project by project from the initial estimate to what changed, to what finally got built, to what finally got assessed on the ground. We'd have to do that for every single case individually. So to me, I think we'd be creating a new exercise for staff between the two departments. The other aspect is when it comes on the tax roll, that too can be a mix of time. So you can do a large portion of a project, and if it comes close to the, sorry, I forget the name, a condition date, I think. So that's the point in time that we pick in the calendar. The assessor says if you're 80% of the way on your new build at that condition date, well, 80% of the value maybe goes on the assessment roll. And the remaining 20%, we catch up with you next year. So there's kind of almost another little conveyor belt or continuum on getting property fully onto the property tax roll that could be spread over a 2-year period. So that's, is it impossible to do? No. Would we get more out of it for the level of effort? I'm not convinced.
Okay.
Board Member Nyberg?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the tax department does check your guys' records to say, okay, there's been a proposal for a new build out in Mr. Nyberg's property. He's put up a 3-story apartment house, right? And you would check that, right? Now, if I put on the estimate that it was a $4.5 million build, but in reality, I put gold toilets in, and it's I upgraded the exterior and made it really beautiful, and it's actually a $6 million build. The tax assessor would then catch that as well, right? Hopefully. That may not be.
They have the possibility of doing that. It's kind of what you paid for it and its value are two different things, as I've been recently lectured.
Fair enough. That's a good point, yeah.
The other aspect is in terms of records, we maintain, you heard me earlier in the meeting saying that we're not in the safety codes business. But we maintain an account on the provincial-based e-site. And that's where all the building inspectors that are doing work within our jurisdiction are supposed to upload their permits and approvals for the provincial agency, Alberta Safety Codes Council, to be able to see. We maintain access to that site, and that's also one of the key pieces of information for our assessors to be able to go in and double check. Because as a project evolves, maybe at the development permit, we didn't know the value of that new detached dwelling. But now it's showing up in the building permit submissions. And then they are also able to do their own research, assessment visits, and inspections.
Next up, we have Board Member Gano, but I'd like to send an investigative staff out to this 3-story building that I don't believe matches our bylaws.
I didn't build it.
Can you bring up the days to decision? So that math, when we do it, do we take out any outliers?
I'm not sure if we've had to this time. So anyone that would have got an extension of time.
I just take the data as it comes. So when we deem it complete, they could apply on the 5th, but I don't have everything that I need to decide and up till a week later. So that's where the math comes up into issue date. So
So Mr. Chair, if I can, so our one outlier would have been the wedding venue that we processed.
Okay.
So that falls mostly on me, I guess. So that one would fall, but it's not recorded on the charts because we hadn't made a decision yet.
Right.
So
Okay, and then how do we stack up against other municipalities? And do we do that comparison? And a follow up, are we getting complaints or compliments in regards to our processing time? Thank you.
We get both.
Yeah, I haven't received a complaint. Sometimes we can turn the permitted uses around the same day or even the next day, depending when I can get out to do the site visit.
So, Mr. Chair, it is kind of, sometimes yes, we get a lucky balance. I don't think, for those are going through, they wouldn't know the metrics. So I don't think a large number of our applicants would know what's fast or slow. Do we purposely benchmark against our peers? No. We more benchmark against the legislative requirements. So the legislative requirement is it's broad because it's supposed to span from a simple garage to the mysterious multi-story building that didn't come through for approval. So a big complex project. And in the legislation, once we deem something complete, we only get 40 days to go to basically conclude and issue a decision. Now, the outliers that you're mentioning earlier, occasionally there are times when we can't get it done in that time frame. It could be, hey, we've looked at it and upon second thought, we need the following information from you. Or we can't get an MPC scheduled. That doesn't happen a lot. Or we bump into Christmas. That actually happened this one. So when we get to that particular case, we agree on an extension of time that the applicant has to agree to give us as approving authority more time to do it. And in the case of the applicant for the wedding venue, they signed a form that I got from them last week that gives us until tomorrow. Looks horrible on our stats. But that is why you can identify them as outliers and then have an explanation to explain why they fall outside of the norm.
Can I add?
We do the reporting.
Yes,
to
Craig.
Statisticals. Yeah.
Craig noted that we don't compare ourselves or see where we stack up against our neighbors. We only care about the legislation, which is how the province sets those goals. Over the province does stack us up against our neighbors, and there's a lot of rhetoric there. But they do make that data publicly available as well, and we're doing just fine.
I would like to point out there is sometimes a difference of opinion from when an applicant deems something as complete versus when our staff deems something as complete. So we will occasionally have applicants that'll submit and they think that 40-day clock starts that second when they hit send. And they expect a very quick turnaround, which I get we all want to strive to achieve, but it's not a perfect world. Some of the less sophisticated or experienced applicants need a fair bit of guidance, I guess, to complete that application. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we go back and forth giving advice or recommendations multiple times before it would ever come before this board. And we don't always get acknowledged for the extra effort behind the scenes to help get them to the finish line. Just on our cost for applications, it's also important to note that the largest construction jobs that happen in our area will never show up there. I mean, if you're trying to look at from a tax perspective, I mean, last year, the largest project in our area was likely the transmission line. That they didn't provide any cost estimate, but I can guarantee you it dwarfs all the rest combined. So it doesn't tell a true story when you get into large scale linear or M&E in sources that we don't regulate, whether it's power or oil and gas, railroad infrastructure. It doesn't tell the whole story on what's coming our way for taxes.
Even with farm buildings, we don't do development permits for those. So any farm building that's get built is not accounted for here.
Board Member Nyberg?
So, Mr. Chair, and that's what I was getting at is we see tax growth, assessment growth, I should say, not tax growth. And sometimes it's just the value of the property that goes up, not the new build. And I think that's what I'm looking at or more interested in, is trying to get the solid stats of if we have an assessment growth of new builds, then we're progressing. If we saw an assessment growth, but it wasn't through new builds, it was just through the value of property, then I think
Appreciation.
we're actually maybe falling backwards. And it goes to that whole adage, are we open for business? And I think we are, and I would just like to be able to have some stats to prove that, we had, $4.2 million of new builds that went through the books and are now going forward, instead of 4.2 million of just assessment growth. There is a difference between the two, right? So that's just the information, and this is just one small piece of what needs to be built in. So, but thank you for that information. It was good. I'll hit the facts department up for more information later.
Can I get go ahead?
Maybe the second half of the report.
Oh,
So,
Not
perfect.
same general idea. We're just switching over to subdivisions. So we have also a legislative time frame on our subdivisions. It's 60 days from the deem of complete to get to an approval. Actually, the same trend. One of the ones today, the 12.58 acre one we were dealing with, had to do an extension of time because of the length of time from they're the ones that put their own application on hold after we deemed it complete, and then it's coming through. So in terms of general trends, the summary sheet is up in front of you. About 18 applications over the course of last year, one up from the previous year. Most had been dealt with by the end of the calendar year. Last year we had one carryover. This year we had two, which we've just now dealt with. The lion's share, about half of them, are still farmstead removals in those first parcel outs involving a farmstead removal. And the size is definitely, in terms of averaging, settling in around that 10 acre size, which is largely driven by a number of factors: the placement and layout of the buildings originally, and a lot of times the open discharge setback, as we face more attention on that. So just a little bit of a trends. I'm not sure you can really see a lot really riveting there. There are some larger parcels that have dragged our average. I think, it's down this year compared to 2024. We had one large parcel that kind of drew up the average last year. So we're settling in around 14 acres of every of the parcels that we created in 2025. That's the average size. And then it ranges anywhere from adjustments for a 3 acre parcel to up to 18 acre plus new parcels. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to field any further questions about the subdivision.
Go ahead, Board Member Nyberg.
If there's no questions or concerns, I'll move both the reports. Receive for information.
Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And carried. No new business, no old business. So next we have a couple in-camera items. If I can get a motion to go into camera. Board Member Clark, all in favor?